Today on Fine Spun Tales, we are telling a story based on Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination, written by Neal Gabler. This retelling consists of 11 chapters. Chapter 1, Escape. Elias Disney is a stern, hard-working man, known for his modest living and devout worship. Born on February 6, 1859 in Blue Vale, Canada, he inherits a legacy of ambition from his family, who originally hail from Normandy and later Ireland. His father, Keppel Disney, embodies restlessness and aspiration, traits that Elias also carries. Despite their initial success in building a life in Canada, the Disneys' search for better opportunities leads them to Kansas, where harsh conditions further harden Elias. The family eventually moves to Florida, seeking warmer weather and new prospects. In Florida, Elias meets and marries Flora, Call on New Year's Day 1888, merging the tenacious Disney spirit with the intellectual temperament of the Calls. Despite his efforts to farm and deliver mail, Elias faces numerous setbacks, including a devastating freeze that destroys his orange crop. The couple moves to Chicago in 1890, following the death of Flora's father. There, Elias works as a carpenter, leveraging his brother Robert's real estate connections to build and sell modest homes, reflecting his unyielding drive despite frequent challenges. The family's deep religious faith shapes their life in Chicago, with Elias becoming a trustee and occasional preacher at their church. The birth of their son, Walter Elias Disney, in 1901 is surrounded by family lore and reflects the blend of determination and romanticism that characterizes both Elias and Flora. By 1906, seeking a safer environment for his children, Elias relocates the family to Missouri, continuing his quest for stability and success. Walt Disney fondly remembers Marceline, Missouri, where he lived on a small farm that he always viewed through a child's eyes as a paradise. Arriving in 1906, the family settled on 45 acres filled with orchards, various animals, and lush green surroundings, which Walt later described as heavenly. Despite its small size and modest conditions, the farm was a place of adventure and joy for Walt, who cherished the companionship of animals and the freedom of rural life. His first experiences with drawing and artistic encouragement also occurred here, fostering a lifelong passion. Life on the farm, however, was challenging for Walt's father, Elias, who struggled with the demands of farming. Financial difficulties and Elias's inability to manage the farm efficiently eventually led to its sale. The family's move into town marked a significant change, with Marceline evolving rapidly and losing some of its rustic charm. Despite these changes, Walt's memories of the town remained idealized, filled with the community spirit and simpler times he experienced as a child. These early years in Marceline profoundly influenced Walt Disney's vision and creativity. The idyllic scenes and values of small-town America he cherished became integral to his work, from Disneyland's Main Street, USA, to his films. Marceline represented a sanctuary of freedom and beauty that Walt sought to recreate throughout his life, continually drawing inspiration from his cherished childhood memories there. Elias Disney moves his family to Kansas City, hoping for a fresh start after leaving Chicago. The city, rapidly growing and full of potential, contrasts sharply with their small, poorly equipped home. Elias sells their farm and buys a paper route, putting his sons Roy and Walt to work. Young Walt, despite his enthusiasm at first, finds the grueling early morning paper deliveries exhausting, especially during harsh winters. Elias's high standards and temper make the work even more challenging, as Walt often faces his father's wrath and must redeliver papers to meet exacting expectations. Despite the demanding routine, Walt discovers a passion for performance and drawing, finding solace and joy in these creative outlets. He performs with his friend Walt Pfeiffer in local talent shows and draws constantly, gaining admiration and a small income from his cartoons displayed in a barbershop. His artistic pursuits provide an escape from the rigors of the paper route and his father's stern demeanor. At school, often sleepy and preoccupied, Walt is recognized for his drawing talent and performs in plays, relishing the applause and acknowledgement. Elias's investments lead the family back to Chicago, but Walt's formative years in Kansas City leave a lasting impact. The challenges of the paper route and Elias's strictness shape Walt's character, fostering resilience and creativity. Kansas City becomes a crucible where Walt Disney begins to forge his identity, blending hardship with the escapism of art and performance, laying the groundwork for his future successes. Elias Disney continues to invest heavily in the Ozell Company upon arriving in Kansas City, purchasing thousands of shares despite the company's financial difficulties. In 1916, he moves his family to Chicago to work at the Ozell plant, with the promise that his son Walt will join the payroll later. Walt, now a freshman at William McKinley High School, quickly gains recognition for his artistic talent, becoming the cartoonist for the school magazine. He spends most of his time drawing cartoons, often with political themes, and excels in his art classes despite having little interest in formal education. During the summer, Walt works various jobs, including at the Ozell factory and as a substitute mail carrier. His job at the post office proves eventful when he narrowly escapes a bomb explosion in the Chicago Federal Building. As the summer of 1918 ends, Walt, inspired by patriotism and his brother's military service, attempts to join the Red Cross Ambulance Corps by altering his birth year to meet the age requirement. After overcoming initial obstacles, including contracting influenza, he eventually sails to France, where he serves in various capacities, drawing cartoons and running errands for the Red Cross. In France, Walt finds joy in his artistic pursuits, creating caricatures and earning money by painting souvenirs for fellow soldiers. Despite his homesickness, he cherishes his experiences and friendships, particularly with Alice Howell, a nurse who becomes a maternal figure to him. By the end of his service, Walt returns to the U.S. with newfound confidence and determination, having decided to pursue a career in art rather than returning to the jelly factory job arranged by his father. Chapter 2, Go-Getter. Walt Disney returns from France in 1919, brimming with youthful exuberance and an optimistic American spirit. He quickly seeks work in Kansas City, initially applying for an office boy position at the Star, but is rejected for looking too old. With encouragement from his brother Roy, Walt finds a job at a commercial art shop run by Louis Pessman and William Rubin, where he learns the basics of commercial art, albeit in a less creative capacity. Despite his excitement, he is soon laid off after the Christmas rush and briefly works at the post office before meeting Uba Ewerks, a fellow artist laid off from the same shop. Together, they form Ewerks Disney, an art partnership that operates out of the restaurant news office, securing various advertising jobs. Despite their initial success, the partnership is short-lived, as Walt is hired by the Kansas City Slide Company to create animated advertisements, a new and fascinating field for him. He persuades the Slide Company president, A.V. Cogger, to let him experiment with animation, marking the beginning of Walt's intense focus on this medium. Meanwhile, Ewerks struggles to maintain their business without Walt's salesmanship and eventually joins him at the Slide Company. In their spare time, Walt and Roy convert a garage at their family home into a studio where Walt tirelessly experiments with animation, solidifying his ambition to become a professional animator. Walt's passion for animation grows as he dedicates himself to learning and perfecting the craft, even as his family remains largely indifferent to his nightly endeavors. His relentless drive and innovative spirit pave the way for his future success in the animation industry, marking a significant shift from his original dream of becoming a newspaper cartoonist to embracing the burgeoning field of animated films. Walt Disney begins his journey into animation in 1920, experimenting in his garage when the medium is still in its infancy. Inspired by early animators and a book on animation techniques, Walt delves into cell animation, which simplifies the process by separating moving characters from static backgrounds. He devotes himself to learning and experimenting, eventually creating short animations called laughograms that gain local attention and even a commission from the Newman Theater. Despite the crude quality, these animations mark his entry into the field and earn him some recognition. Driven by a passion for animation and a desire for independence, Walt forms Laughogram Films in 1922, aiming to produce longer animations with a contemporary twist on fairy tales. He recruits a team of young, eager animators and works tirelessly in a makeshift studio. His ambitions extend beyond animation as he dabbles in live-action films and newsreels, always seeking new opportunities to support his burgeoning studio. Despite setbacks, including financial challenges and his family moving away, Walt remains undeterred, driven by a combination of artistic passion and a deep need for community. Throughout this period, Walt finds solace and support in his work and the camaraderie of his fellow animators. Laugh-O-Gram becomes a place where young animators can collaborate and share in Walt's vision, providing both a professional and personal refuge. This sense of community and the ability to control his creative world offer Walt a sense of empowerment and fulfillment, setting the stage for his later successes in the animation industry. Walt Disney starts Laugh-O-Gram Studio with limited assets, relying on his own funds and contributions from friends, including Rudy Ising. Despite incorporating and securing some investments, he struggles to find substantial financial support. He secures a key investment from Dr. John V. Cowles, which allows him to rent a studio and hire a small team. However, the studio faces constant financial difficulties, with Walt often unable to pay his staff and suppliers. Walt and his team work tirelessly, producing animations despite their limited knowledge and resources. They even improvise equipment and study existing cartoons to improve their techniques. A small break comes when they secure a contract for a series of films, but the terms are unfavorable and the payment is delayed. As financial pressures mount, Walt's checks bounce and they barely scrape by, often working for free. They explore additional ventures, including educational films and local advertisements, but these efforts are insufficient to keep the studio afloat. Ultimately, Laugh-O-Gram declares bankruptcy. Walt's resilience remains unshaken, and he decides to move to Hollywood, believing in his potential for success. He leaves Kansas City, selling his belongings to repay creditors, and using his last earnings to buy a train ticket. With a mix of hope and determination, Walt Disney sets out for a new beginning, confident that he will eventually succeed in the burgeoning entertainment industry. Chapter 3: Wonderland. In 1923, Walt Disney arrives in Hollywood with a borrowed suit and little money, hoping to break into the film industry. He brings with him a reel of Alice's Wonderland and some drawing supplies, although he is not optimistic about his chances in animation, feeling he may have entered the industry too late. Despite his outward confidence, Walt worries about his prospects but remains determined, exploring various studios and trying to find work. He eventually meets with theater impresario Alexander Pantages to propose a special little joke reel, though he faces numerous rejections and financial struggles during this period. Walt's fortunes begin to change when Margaret Winkler, a prominent film distributor, shows interest in his Alice series. She offers him a contract to produce a series of films, which provides Walt with the necessary funds to establish a new studio. He teams up with his brother Roy, and together they start Disney Brothers Studio. They face numerous challenges, including borrowing money from relatives and struggling with the technical aspects of animation. Despite these hurdles, Walt perseveres, producing the first film, Alice's Day at the Sea, and delivering it ahead of schedule. As the Disney brothers work to improve their productions, they receive mixed feedback from Winkler, who encourages them to inject more humor into their films. They hire additional staff, including Ub Iwerks, a skilled animator, to help with the workload. The emphasis of the Alice series gradually shifts from the live-action girl to her cartoon companions, particularly a character named Julius the Cat. Despite the challenges and pressures, Walt's determination to succeed drives him to continually improve the quality of his animations, setting the foundation for the future success of the Disney Empire. Walt Disney shows little interest in women during his youth, preferring the company of male friends. Even after his first love, Bea Conover, jilted him, he focuses on his animation career rather than pursuing romantic relationships. He dates occasionally but views marriage as a trap, determined not to marry until he is financially secure. Roy Disney also delays marriage, waiting until he has recovered from tuberculosis and saved enough money. In the spring of 1925, after an argument with Walt, Roy decides to marry his longtime fiancée, Edna Francis. Walt serves as best man at the wedding, where he meets Lillian Bounds, a studio inker. Though their initial interactions are more about convenience than romance, They eventually begin dating. Walt and Lillian's relationship develops gradually, characterized more by companionship than passion. They spend time together driving and talking about Walt's ambitions. Eventually, Walt proposes indirectly, and they marry in a small ceremony in Lewiston in July 1925. Despite a somewhat unromantic courtship and wedding, their marriage becomes a partnership supportive of Walt's growing career. In the summer of 1923, Walt Disney returns to his studio buoyed by positive reviews for his Alice comedies. The success prompts Virginia Davis, the star of the series, to make public appearances, and Walt and his brother Roy even put a deposit on a new plot of land for a larger studio. However, by fall, tensions with his distributor, Charles Mintz, resurface over financial and scheduling issues. Walt threatens to find a new distributor, prompting a heated exchange. Despite the conflict, Mintz offers a new contract with slightly better terms, but when Walt demands complete creative control, Mintz refuses, leading to a breakdown in their negotiations. Simultaneously, Walt faces another dispute with the Davises over Virginia's pay, resulting in the casting of new actresses for the series. In February, Walt's studio moves to Hyperion Avenue, marking a significant but modest upgrade. Despite this, Walt continues to struggle financially, even producing low-profit films like a dental hygiene movie to make ends meet. His conflict with Mintz intensifies, culminating in a direct appeal to Mintz's boss, which backfires. Although a new contract is eventually agreed upon, Walt remains financially strained and increasingly anxious about the future of his studio. As the year progresses, Walt's financial woes and pressure from Mintz lead to increased tension within the studio. The once collaborative and fun-loving atmosphere sours, with Walt becoming more demanding and critical. This change in demeanor causes friction among his staff, some of whom plot to leave and start their own studio. The internal strife reaches a breaking point when Walt fires key employees, leading to lingering resentments that threaten to undermine the stability of his studio. In June, Walt Disney put his staff on a rigorous 2.5-week per film schedule, offering bonuses to speed up production. Despite efforts to improve animations, the Alice series was losing its appeal. Personnel changes and other disruptions made it hard to keep up. Walt expressed concerns about the series' stagnation and sought feedback on new films. Meanwhile, Mintz, concluding that the Alice films were nearing their end, negotiated with Universal for a new character series. Walt created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, but initial cartoons faced criticism, leading to adjustments in Oswald's design and character development. Mintz and Universal demanded quick production of Oswald films, resulting in Walt rapidly creating Poor Papa, which Universal rejected for lacking a cohesive story. Walt revised Oswald, aiming for a distinctive personality rather than just a vehicle for gags. By the release of Trolley Troubles, reception improved, and Oswald gained popularity. The animation quality and character development received praise, setting a new standard in the industry. This success allowed Walt to expand his staff and improve working conditions, fostering a thriving studio environment. With the studio's growth, Walt and Roy Disney invested in building homes in the Silver Lake district. Despite their modest sizes, these homes represented a significant milestone for the brothers. Walt's dedication to his work often kept him away, but he showed his caring nature by ensuring Lillian had companionship, exemplified by his thoughtful Christmas gift of a chow puppy named Sunny. This gesture highlighted Walt's ability to balance his demanding career with personal kindness, contributing to a harmonious home life. In early 1928, Walt Disney faces a significant betrayal when Charles Mintz, who had grown tired of Walt's financial demands and perceived lack of contribution, plots to take control of Walt's studio. Mintz, through his associate George Winkler, secretly signs several of Walt's animators, leaving Walt blindsided when Ub-Iwerks warns him of the scheme. Still confident, Walt travels to New York to negotiate a new contract, only to be met with resistance from Mintz and a cold reception from other studios. Mintz offers unfavorable terms that reduce Walt to a subcontractor, leading Walt to frantically attempt to secure his staff's loyalty, but they refuse, confirming the betrayal. Desperate, Walt meets with Universal executive Manny Goldstein, who expresses interest in dealing directly with Walt in the future, but cannot help immediately. Mintz's final offer to Walt includes taking over the Disney organization and relegating Walt to an employee, which Walt angrily rejects. He realizes he must wait out the year under his current contract with Mintz while plotting a future without Oswald and many of his animators. Despite the disillusionment, Walt remains determined to rebuild and never again cede control over his creations. Returning to Los Angeles, Walt feels the weight of starting over, but carries valuable lessons about trust and control. This betrayal, which he would later recount as a story of poetic justice, shapes his resolve to protect his creative vision. Walt's optimism and resilience are tested, but he remains determined to overcome the setback and establish a new path for his career and his studio. Chapter 4: The Mouse. Walt Disney, feeling betrayed and furious after losing his character Oswald, vows never to work for someone else again. On the train back to Los Angeles, he spends his time sketching a new character, a mouse inspired by Charles Lindbergh's Solo Flight. Initially naming the character Mortimer, Walt changes it to Mickey at his wife Lillian's suggestion. They believe a mouse would be a cute and marketable character, leading to the creation of Mickey Mouse, developed with the help of UbiWorks and a few loyal staff members. Facing financial pressures and the betrayal of his animators, Walt and his small team worked tirelessly to create Plain Crazy, Mickey's first cartoon. Despite their efforts, distributors initially reject it. Walt then decides to innovate by adding synchronized sound to the cartoons, inspired by the success of The Jazz Singer. This leads to the creation of Steamboat Willie, which they test with great success, marking the beginning of a new era for animated films. Steamboat Willie proves to be a groundbreaking success, combining animation with sound and establishing Mickey Mouse as a beloved character. This innovation reinvigorates the Disney studio, which Walt had to refinance to stay afloat. The success of this sound cartoon not only saves the studio, but also sets the standard for future animated films, securing Mickey Mouse's place in popular culture and launching the Disney empire. Walt Disney is in New York, seeking a way to add sound to his cartoon, Steamboat Willie. After multiple meetings and rejecting other options, he decides to work with Pat Powers and his Cinephone sound-on-film system. Despite initial failures and a disastrous first recording session, Walt devises a new synchronization system that ultimately works, saving the project and his studio from financial ruin. The successful recording of Steamboat Willie boosts Walt's spirits, but he still faces the challenge of finding a distributor. Pat Powers arranges a screening with Universal, but negotiations fall through. Walt then meets Harry Reichenbach, manager of the Colony Theater, who agrees to show Steamboat Willie on Broadway, paying Walt $1,000 for the run. The cartoon debuts to great acclaim, attracting attention from the trade press and distributors. Steamboat Willie revolutionizes the animation industry, but Walt's triumph is short-lived, as distributors want to buy his studio rather than just the film. Determined to maintain control, Walt, with Powers' help, secures distribution deals on a states' rights basis, allowing him to return to California with renewed hope for his studio's future. In January, Walt Disney returns to New York to promote new Mickey Mouse cartoons and other projects after briefly being in California. Concerned about over-reliance on Mickey, he plans a series of live-action comedies and a new cartoon series called Silly Symphonies. The idea for Silly Symphonies, inspired by Carl Stalling, involves animating action to music, starting with the skeleton dance. Despite initial resistance from distributors, Walt persists, confident in the series' potential. During this period, he also focuses on establishing himself as a key figure in the animation industry and setting up a sound recording studio in California to enhance production capabilities. Walt faces significant challenges, including financial pressures and contractual disputes with Pat Powers, his distributor. Powers demands hefty fees and royalties, straining Walt's finances. Determined, Walt secures loans from various sources, including his father, and proceeds with ambitious plans for the recording studio. He also grapples with securing distribution for Silly Symphonies while dealing with setbacks, such as Carl Stalling and UbiWorks leaving the studio. Despite these difficulties, Walt's relentless promotion efforts, including theater screenings and the formation of Mickey Mouse clubs, gradually build Mickey Mouse's popularity and establish a dedicated fan base. Walt's ultimate goal is to surpass Felix the Cat in fame, and he tirelessly promotes Mickey through various means, including newspaper comic strips and merchandise. He navigates complex negotiations and legal battles, particularly with Powers, to secure better distribution deals and financial stability. Despite betrayals and financial strains, Walt's persistence pays off as he signs a new contract with Columbia Pictures, ensuring the continued production and distribution of Mickey Mouse and Silly Symphonies, setting the stage for Disney's growing success in the animation industry. In the early 1930s, Mickey Mouse becomes a global phenomenon, drawing attention from audiences and critics alike. Columbia spends $50,000 to free Walt Disney from a contract with Pat Powers due to Mickey's rising popularity. Mickey's fame transcends American borders, making him the most popular star in Europe and earning praise from critics worldwide. Imitations of Mickey by competitors highlight his influence, while Disney's legal actions emphasize the uniqueness of his creation. Walt Disney attributes Mickey's appeal to simple, relatable emotions and constant action, creating a character beloved for his underdog triumphs and endearing personality. Mickey's appeal extends beyond entertainment, resonating deeply with the cultural and psychological currents of the time. Scholars and cultural historians link his design and actions to themes of survival, freedom, and resilience, particularly poignant during the Great Depression. Mickey's visual iconography, with its reassuring circles and relatable human-like features, invokes feelings of affection and nostalgia. His ability to break natural laws while maintaining moral integrity makes him a symbol of unbounded freedom and optimism, captivating audiences and becoming a cultural icon of his era. Walt Disney's personal connection to Mickey further cements the character's legacy. Walt voices Mickey himself, imbuing the character with a distinct personality. Mickey's adventures, marked by imaginative transformations and musicality, reflect Walt's own creative spirit. This connection between creator and creation ensures Mickey's enduring popularity. As a projection of Walt's own trials and triumphs, Mickey becomes a timeless symbol of joy, resilience, and the power of imagination, continually captivating audiences and reaffirming traditional values through fantastical narratives. In the winter of 1930, Walt Disney's studio on Hyperion Avenue is bustling with activity and growth. Walt is recruiting top talent like Ted Sears and Harry Reeves, reflecting the studio's rising status. They even consider expanding to live-action comedies. The physical space undergoes several expansions to accommodate the influx of staff, and by 1931, the studio boasts new buildings and a large neon sign proudly displaying Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. Despite this growth, financial strains persist. The contract with Columbia Pictures is demanding, and by early 1931, production delays lead to severe financial pressure. Walt institutes a new system to speed up production, but the contract's terms with Columbia remain unfavorable. This period of intense work and financial difficulty culminates in Walt suffering from health issues and an emotional breakdown. Walt's dedication to quality remains unwavering. Even amidst personal and professional challenges, including Lillian's miscarriage and financial strains, Walt refuses to compromise on the quality of his animations. His relentless pursuit of excellence defines the studio's ethos, fostering a spirit of camaraderie among the staff. Ultimately, despite the hardships, the studio continues to produce acclaimed work, maintaining its reputation for excellence in animation. Chapter 5: The Cult. During the Great Depression, Walt Disney's studio remains largely unscathed financially, unlike many other studios that suffer due to overextending in theater purchases. Walt's commitment to quality, often increasing production costs instead of cutting them, helps the studio sail through economic hardships. Even as the Depression mirrors his personal emotional struggles, leading to a breakdown, Walt plans an extensive trip with his wife, Lillian. They impulsively switch plans, traveling from Washington, D.C., eventually finding solace in Havana. This trip rejuvenates Walt, who returns to the studio with a new vigor for life and work. At the studio, Walt's relentless pursuit of excellence transforms animation. He insists on personality animation, where characters are believable in motion and emotion, moving away from the flat, rigid animations of the past. Innovations like pencil tests and storyboards emerge, allowing animators to refine their work meticulously. Walt's demand for emotional depth in characters and the narrative's seamless flow marks a revolutionary change in the animation industry, positioning Disney's work as superior and more sophisticated than its competitors. Walt's obsession with quality also extends to color. Despite initial opposition from his brother Roy due to high costs, Walt's determination leads to a partnership with Technicolor. The success of Flowers and Trees, Disney's first color cartoon, validates Walt's vision, leading to widespread acclaim and a new standard in animation. This drive for innovation, coupled with meticulous storytelling and character development, cements Disney's legacy as a pioneer in elevating animation to an art form. By 1933, Walt Disney's Silly Symphony series, particularly Three Little Pigs, rivals Mickey Mouse in critical acclaim. The cartoon's concept comes from a story in Andrew Lang's Green Fairy book, and Walt takes special interest in its production, spending significant time overseeing its development. Animator Fred Moore's design of the pigs, coupled with the catchy song, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, significantly contributes to the film's success, making it a cultural phenomenon. Audiences and critics alike celebrate the cartoon, with its popularity extending beyond cinemas to radio and newspapers. Three Little Pigs becomes a massive hit, its success leading to an overwhelming demand that outpaces United Artists' ability to distribute prints. The song from the cartoon permeates American culture, becoming an anthem of resilience during the Great Depression. The cartoon's timing and its optimistic message resonate with the public, symbolizing defiance against economic hardship. Walt's innovative approach to animation, characterized by strong character personalities and the groundbreaking use of storyboarding, sets new standards in the industry. Walt's focus on quality and innovation drives the expansion of his studio, which grows to nearly 200 staff by late 1933. He reorganizes the production process, introducing new roles and methods to streamline efficiency while maintaining high standards. The success of Three Little Pigs not only boosts the studio's financial health, but also elevates the status of animation as a serious art form, with Walt continuously pushing boundaries to achieve excellence in his creations. Walt Disney, struggling with the demands of producing animations and re-educating animators, tries to stave off another breakdown by maintaining an exercise schedule, including horseback riding, swimming, and even taking dancing and boxing lessons. Despite these efforts, Walt becomes increasingly withdrawn, socializing less and focusing all his enthusiasm on his work at the studio. Outside of work, he finds a new passion in polo, a sport that becomes a Hollywood fad in the 1930s. Walt invests heavily in the sport, recruiting staff from the studio to form a team and practicing rigorously, eventually playing matches at prestigious clubs and even traveling for games. During this period, Walt and his wife Lillian experience both joy and sorrow in their personal life. After a miscarriage, Lillian becomes pregnant again in 1933, prompting Walt to build a new home in anticipation of the baby. Their cautious optimism turns to happiness when their daughter, Diane Marie Disney, is born in December 1933. The birth occurs during a luncheon where Walt is receiving an award for Mickey Mouse, and he hurriedly leaves to be with Lillian, later proudly announcing the birth to his brother Roy. Meanwhile, Mickey Mouse, though initially overshadowed by the success of the Silly Symphony cartoons, remains highly popular. Despite challenges in maintaining Mickey's character and the need to evolve him, Mickey continues to be a cultural icon, receiving accolades and enjoying widespread success in merchandise. The introduction of Donald Duck as a new character offers a contrast to Mickey and helps to invigorate the studio's creative output, providing a new outlet for animators and delighting audiences with his mischievous and irate personality. In the mid-1930s, Walt Disney garners immense fame and recognition, with awards and accolades from various prestigious institutions, such as the French Legion of Honor and the Venice Film Festival. His studio attracts visits from notable personalities like Douglas Fairbanks, H.G. Wells, and Frank Lloyd Wright. Despite this, Walt remains humble, often recounting his modest beginnings and maintaining an image of simplicity and hard work. His office is modest, and he prefers to be called by his first name by his employees, emphasizing his down-to-earth persona. Walt's true genius lies not in drawing or animating, but in storytelling and leading his studio. Although he no longer creates the actual animations, his creative vision and instincts guide every project. He meticulously reviews storyboards, often acting out scenes to communicate his ideas to his team. His leadership style is a blend of informality and high expectations, pushing his employees to produce their best work. This approach fosters a unique culture at the studio where everyone is dedicated to the mission of creating groundbreaking cartoons. The studio operates under Walt's intense scrutiny and direction, with his moods influencing the entire environment. Despite occasional criticisms of his demanding nature, his staff respects and admires him, viewing him almost with reverence. This devotion results in a highly motivated workforce, driven by the desire to meet Walt's high standards and vision. As the studio evolves, this strong sense of purpose and commitment to excellence positions it for even greater achievements in the future. Chapter 6: Folly. In mid-1933, Walt Disney, always consumed by his work and wary of past betrayals, decides to chart a bold new course for his studio amid the success of Three Little Pigs. Frustrated by the limited profits of shorts, he envisions creating a full-length feature cartoon. Despite the challenges of the Great Depression and the high costs of producing silly symphonies, Disney remains determined. Inspired by his childhood memories and the story's potential, he chooses Snow White for its blend of sympathetic characters and rich narrative elements, which resonate deeply with his own life's themes. By the spring of 1934, Disney is intensely focused on developing Snow White, honing the story with his team through extensive sessions. He personally acts out the tale, captivating his employees and driving them with his vision. Despite initial doubts, Disney's relentless storytelling and enthusiasm rally his team. However, practical concerns arise, including financing the project. Though offers from potential backers like United Artists and Jock Whitney fall through, Disney and his brother Roy persevere, scraping together resources to start the production, undeterred by the rising costs and extended timelines. As Disney commits fully to Snow White, he immerses himself in every detail, from character development to gag creation, refining the script scene by scene. His perfectionism slows progress, but his passion remains unshaken. A rejuvenating European tour in 1935 gives him a fresh perspective, yet upon returning, he dedicates himself even more to the project, aiming for a feature that would surpass all expectations. Despite the immense challenges, Disney's unwavering dedication to Snow White marks a turning point for his studio, setting the stage for a groundbreaking achievement in animation. Walt Disney needs more animators for his growing studio, especially as he gears up for Snow White. He recruits both veterans and eager young talents, recognizing their potential to enhance his projects. Notable recruits include Art Babbitt, who left New York for a chance at Disney, and Grim Natwick, convinced to join despite initial reluctance. The studio also attracts talents like Vladimir Bill Tytla, whose intensity and skill create a new animation style. This influx of skilled animators builds Disney's reputation as the premier animation studio. Walt systematically trains his new hires to achieve the level of excellence he desires for Snow White. Don Graham's rigorous life drawing classes and analytical sessions help animators hone their craft. Animators study human behavior, motion, and even inanimate objects to bring life to their drawings. Walt also brings in experts like Dr. Boris Morkovin to dissect gags and narrative structures, although Morkovin's academic approach is not well received by all. The relentless pursuit of perfection fosters a culture of obsession and dedication among the animators. By late 1935, the studio is ready to begin animating Snow White. Walt assigns animators to specific characters and scenes, blending their individual strengths into a cohesive project. Despite logistical challenges and a shortage of animators, intense recruitment efforts, including a mission to New York, bring in the necessary talent. The studio's environment, likened to a Renaissance craft hall, nurtures creativity and collaboration, setting the stage for the groundbreaking success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The atmosphere is described as magical and inspiring, with employees feeling like part of a winning team. The studio rapidly expands, adding new buildings to accommodate the growing staff. Despite the pressures, camaraderie thrives, with work being a source of joy and pride. The studio environment is vibrant, with brightly colored interiors and well-designed workspaces that contribute to the overall creative spirit. As production of Snow White progresses, the studio operates like a tight-knit community, often compared to a college campus due to its youthful, informal, and jocular culture. Employees engage in playful pranks and enjoy activities like baseball and volleyball, reflecting a unique blend of hard work and fun. Walt Disney fosters this environment, emphasizing a family-like atmosphere and providing excellent working conditions, including good pay and generous vacation policies, to maintain high morale and dedication among his staff. Despite the challenges of balancing creativity with commercial demands, Walt and Roy Disney implement a bonus system to incentivize productivity and quality. Although not universally liked, the system helps streamline production and deepen the employees' loyalty to the studio. Walt's vision of a collaborative and supportive workplace mirrors the utopian ideals he strives to achieve in his films, making the Disney studio a near-perfect world for its dedicated artists and animators. In February 1936, after years of preparation, animation of Snow White begins. Walt Disney is deeply involved, reviewing scripts scene by scene for hours weekly, constantly revising and refining the story. His passion is evident as he recites the story to anyone who will listen, incorporating new ideas and ensuring the vision remains cohesive. Walt's hands-on approach, from conceptual ideas to minute details, guides the animators as they struggle to realize his vision for both the characters and the overall film. The studio faces significant challenges, particularly with the human characters and the dwarfs. Grim Natwick and Ham Lusk, tasked with designing Snow White, clash over her appearance, resulting in a compromise that blends cartoonish innocence with more realistic features. The dwarfs prove even more problematic, with months of debate and experimentation needed to define their personalities and visual characteristics. Walt's insistence on unique traits for each dwarf leads to intensive brainstorming and even the hiring of real-life dwarfs for inspiration. As animation progresses, the studio's initial camaraderie gives way to rivalries and stress, reflecting the project's high stakes. Animators navigate the tension between maintaining Walt's vision and injecting their creativity, while Walt's constant involvement ensures the film aligns with his imagination. By January 1937, after resolving many creative conflicts, the team is finally ready to bring Snow White to life, marking the beginning of the final animation process. During the creation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt Disney and his team faced numerous challenges to meet the premiere deadline in December 1937. Casting the voices was crucial since animators needed the voice tracks to draw scenes. Early in 1936, several dwarfs' voices were cast, including actors like Pinto Colvig for Grumpy and Sleepy. Lucille Laverne secured the role of the Queen with her chilling audition, while Adriana Caselotti was chosen for Snow White after impressing Walt with her youthful voice. Simultaneously, Walt meticulously worked on the music, aiming for a balance between quaint and lively, though he remained unsatisfied with the integration of songs into the film until the very end. To achieve a distinct visual style, Walt focused on improving the colors and depth of the animation. The studio developed its own paints and installed advanced equipment like a spectrophotometer for precise color measurement. Walt sought a more artistic approach with muted palettes and detailed backgrounds, contrasting the bright, bold colors of earlier shorts. Albert Herder, the chief designer, and other talented artists created intricate designs and backgrounds, requiring new techniques and larger animation paper. Their efforts aimed to create a more realistic and immersive visual experience. Walt's pursuit of realism led to the development of the multiplane camera, which allowed for layered animation that simulated depth and perspective. This innovation was first tested on the Old Mill, showcasing its ability to create a three-dimensional effect. The multiplane camera required complex operation and precise lighting, but ultimately contributed to the stunning visual realism of Snow White. This technological advancement underscored Walt's commitment to surpassing traditional animation limits and elevating the film to compete with live-action cinema. In 1936, Walt and Roy Disney secure a new distribution deal with RKO, aiming to enhance their market presence and improve their control over their productions. Dissatisfied with United Artists, particularly over foreign receipt shares and control issues, they seek better support for their ambitious project, Snow White. Despite the enthusiasm of RKO's chairman for the project, the studio faces enormous pressure, as the film is still far from complete by early 1937, leaving them less than a year to finish. Walt immerses himself in the production, sweatboxing rough animations and refining story sequences, often clashing with animators over the pace and quality. The animators, under intense pressure, work long hours, often in shifts, as the studio recruits additional help to meet the looming deadline. Live-action footage is used extensively to guide the animation, though Walt insists on not directly copying it. Financial strains mount as the project's costs balloon, requiring repeated loans from the Bank of America, leading to tension between Walt and Roy over spending. Despite these challenges, Snow White finally premieres on December 21, 1937, to widespread acclaim. The audience's emotional response, especially during the dwarf's grieving scene, validates the years of hard work. Critics praise the film as a technical and artistic masterpiece, and it becomes a significant milestone in animation history, showcasing Disney's vision and setting new standards for animated films. Chapter 7: Parnassus. After Snow White debuts, Walt Disney's life reaches a peak. The film becomes an extraordinary success, grossing nearly $180,000 in 10 weeks at Carthay Circle and over $500,000 at Radio City Music Hall. Upon general release, it brings in $3.5 million in North America and eventually surpasses $6.7 million, becoming the highest-grossing American film to date. Internationally, the film also triumphs, breaking records in London, Paris, Sydney, and even overcoming censorship in Holland. The popularity extends beyond theaters, with over 2,000 Snow White products sold, including 16.5 million drinking glasses, and spurs a national radio program and other ventures. This monumental success lifts the entire Disney family out of the hardships of the Depression. Walt's parents, Elias and Flora, moved to a new house in California bought by their sons. Meanwhile, Walt's focus on work strains his relationship with Lillian, leading to tension. However, the adoption of their second daughter, Sharon, brings them closer together. Walt, who becomes increasingly family-oriented, remains a devoted father despite a demanding schedule and deteriorating health due to stress and polo injuries. He shifts his social activities away from polo and towards family time, often taking his daughters to Griffith Park or involving them in his studio life. The studio itself undergoes significant transformation in the wake of Snow White's success. Walt plans and constructs a new state-of-the-art studio in Burbank, designed by industrial designer Kem Weber. This new facility aims to be a worker's paradise, featuring comfortable, modern amenities and workspaces. Despite the studio's growing complexity and workforce, Walt remains deeply involved in every aspect of its design and function, ensuring it meets his exacting standards. This period marks a shift from the chaotic, experimental early days to a more structured, ambitious phase in Disney's animation production. By the fall of 1938, Walt Disney is back at the Hyperion studio, focused on Bambi after the success of Snow White. He faces difficulties with the project, feeling uncertain about its direction, despite having worked on it since 1935. Disney's efforts to streamline the process involve a hurried production schedule, but he struggles to find the right narrative approach. The complexity of Bambi, coupled with his desire to capitalize on Snow White's momentum, pushes him to prioritize speed over meticulous planning. As Bambi's challenges mount, Disney shifts his attention to Pinocchio, hoping it would be a simpler project. Inspired by Carlo Collodi's novel, Disney rushes its production without thorough preparation, resulting in a chaotic process with frequent revisions and discarded scenes. Despite the rushed environment, Disney tries to maintain his high standards, engaging deeply with the material and storyboarding extensively, although the lack of initial planning creates significant hurdles. During this tumultuous period, Disney also embarks on a more ambitious project, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which evolves into the concert feature, later known as Fantasia. This new venture, blending classical music with animation, reinvigorates Disney's creative spirit. However, his personal life takes a tragic turn when his mother, Flora, dies from carbon monoxide poisoning in the new home he had bought for her. This event deeply affects Disney, marking one of the most devastating moments in his life and impacting his emotional state during an already demanding period at the studio. Walt Disney, determined to move forward despite setbacks, refocuses on Pinocchio in the fall, addressing its narrative issues by emphasizing Jiminy Cricket as the moral center and expanding his role. The animation process involves detailed story meetings and careful scene analyses. By December, Walt is pleased with the progress, despite tight schedules and budget constraints. He introduces innovative techniques like creating models for animators to study and developing new paint application methods to enhance the film's realism. Walt's passion shifts to the concert feature, later known as Fantasia. Collaborating with Leopold Stokowski, they meticulously select classical pieces to visualize through animation, blending art and music in groundbreaking ways. Their enthusiasm for the project is palpable, leading to creative discussions and experimental ideas like 3D effects and synchronized sound systems. This collaboration results in a vibrant, imaginative process, contrasting the more rigid and challenging development of Pinocchio. As Fantasia progresses, Walt also oversees Bambi, pushing for accelerated production. Initially slow and experimental, the process eventually gains momentum with a focused team of animators dedicated to perfecting the character's realism. This period sees Walt balancing multiple ambitious projects, each pushing the boundaries of animation and storytelling, solidifying his reputation as a pioneering force in the industry. In December, while working on Bambi, Walt Disney oversees the move from Hyperion to the new studio in Burbank, amidst managing projects like Pinocchio and Fantasia. Despite financial constraints and production delays, construction proceeds swiftly thanks to Roy Disney securing a government loan. The new studio, opening 3 months late, embodies Walt's vision of a functional yet aesthetically pleasing workspace designed to boost employee morale, incorporating colorful buildings and various amenities to create a campus-like atmosphere. However, some employees feel the new environment is too perfect, leading to a sense of impersonality and decreased camaraderie compared to the old Hyperion studio. The move to Burbank coincides with the release of Pinocchio, which, despite critical acclaim, fails to match the financial success of Snow White, partly due to the competition from Gone with the Wind and the impact of World War II. This financial strain exacerbates as the costly Fantasia also underperforms. Roy Disney negotiates the issuance of preferred stock to alleviate financial pressures, a decision Walt reluctantly accepts. Despite his preference for independence, the necessity of public financing becomes apparent to sustain the studio's ambitious projects and secure its future. In response to these challenges, Walt addresses his employees in a heartfelt meeting, emphasizing the need for collaboration and shared profits to maintain the studio's creative spirit and ensure its longevity. He envisions a united, motivated workforce contributing to high-quality productions and introduces a plan for profit sharing based on employees' contributions and tenure. This period marks a significant transformation for Disney as financial realities impose new dynamics on the studio's operations and its founder's relationship with his team. In 1940, Walt Disney urgently needs to generate profits after Fantasia, so he decides to produce Dumbo, a simple story about a young circus elephant with oversized ears. Walt loves the simplicity of Dumbo and assigns his animators to this project, as it requires fewer special effects and a straightforward cartoon style. This approach speeds up production significantly, allowing for quick and efficient work without the agonizing revisions that plagued previous features like Bambi. The streamlined process and Walt's clear vision help keep costs low, and animators feel confident in the project's potential success. Simultaneously, Walt plans another quick project, The Reluctant Dragon, a live-action animated featurette starring humorist Robert Benchley. The film is designed to showcase the Disney studio and its animation process, acting as an advertisement while being produced quickly and on a limited budget. Walt's uncharacteristic decision to prioritize speed and entertainment value over perfection reflects the studio's financial pressures. The film is produced swiftly, with Walt giving the director considerable freedom, and it is completed in record time, ready for a potential Christmas release. Meanwhile, progress on Bambi continues, with Walt pushing for a balance between realism and caricature to achieve the right style. The animators finally find the right approach, which deeply moves Walt and marks a significant turning point for the studio. This success leads Walt to recognize the need for different styles for different projects, thereby establishing a hierarchy among the animators. The studio's financial struggles are addressed by securing another loan from the Bank of America, with Walt and Roy committed to economizing and ensuring the studio's survival. In the rush to release Fantasia in November 1940, Disney's team works long hours under Walt's meticulous supervision. The film features extravagant special effects, and Walt particularly focuses on the final Ave Maria scene, aiming for a grand, hypnotic climax to contrast with Bald Mountain. This sequence requires a complex 220-foot tracking shot, which undergoes multiple reshoots due to technical issues and even an earthquake, just barely making it to the premiere on time. Despite the excitement and high expectations, Fantasia faces mixed reviews. Critics are divided, with some praising its innovation and others criticizing its pretensions and perceived political undertones. Walt is initially buoyed by the public's enthusiasm and strong ticket sales, but the high costs of the Fantasound system and the lack of immediate financial returns temper the studio's optimism. As distribution expands, compromises are made, including trimming the film's length, which further dampens Walt's spirits. Ultimately, Fantasia is a bittersweet endeavor for Disney. While Walt sees it as an artistic triumph and a significant experience, the film's reception and financial performance do not meet his lofty aspirations. The project underscores the challenges of balancing artistic vision with commercial viability, leaving Walt contemplating the future direction of his studio and its productions. This video is brought to you by Count Currency from Finespun Software. When you are handling cash, Count Currency makes the job easier. With Count Currency, you only need to count how many coins or notes you have. If interrupted, Count Currency always remembers, even if you have to restart your device. Count Currency is made to be the easiest, laser-focused tool to make counting cash as simple as it can be. It requires no network connection to work and takes less space than a photograph on your device. Perfect for small business owners, waitstaff, or anyone who handles coins and cash. Download it today. Available for iPhone on the App Store. Chapter 8, Two Wars. Since moving to Burbank, tensions have been rising at Disney Studios, with financial strain exacerbated by the failure of Fantasia. Roy Disney implements strict budget cuts, impacting employee morale and limiting new projects. Walt, determined to reward his staff secretly, fears backlash from the Bank of America, which already doubts the studio's financial stability due to ongoing war impacts and previous losses from Pinocchio. Despite small profits and stock bonuses, debt approaches $3 million, forcing Walt into contentious meetings with bankers who demand more cost-cutting measures. Strains between Walt and his staff grow as the studio expands, making it impossible for Walt to maintain close relationships with all employees. Physical separation in the Burbank studio and the necessity to delegate tasks lead to his perceived disengagement. Employees feel undervalued and distant from Walt, who becomes more distrustful and less accessible. This environment fosters resentment, with some staff perceiving favoritism and others feeling neglected or unjustly criticized. As union activities intensify, Walt's efforts to control the situation backfire, leading to more discontent. He implements salary cuts and austerity measures, which fail to quell the unrest. His speeches to staff, meant to inspire, instead highlight his faults, and union leaders gain support. The conflict escalates with firings and public confrontations, culminating in Art Babbitt's dismissal, which rallies employees to strike. Walt's resistance to recognizing the union and his contentious relationship with Babbitt drive the studio into deeper turmoil, reflecting the widening rift between Walt and his once loyal workforce. On May 28th, the strike at Walt Disney Studios begins, creating a tense, chaotic atmosphere. Animators, led by Arthur Babbitt, organize picket lines and vocal protests, accusing Walt Disney of hypocrisy. Walt, frustrated and feeling betrayed, attempts to downplay the strike's impact, but the growing unrest among the workers is evident. He perceives the strike leaders as communist agitators, undermining his vision of the studio as a close-knit community. This belief is fueled by right-wing entities and personal advisors, further complicating the labor dispute. Despite initial optimism from Disney's management that the strike would be short-lived, the situation deteriorates. The union, supported by various Hollywood figures, ramps up its efforts, leading to violent confrontations and significant disruptions to the studio's operations. The involvement of notorious racketeer Willie Bioff only worsens the situation, as strikers reject any settlement involving him. The federal government eventually intervenes, leading to arbitration and a tentative settlement on July 30th, which includes wage increases and the reinstatement of fired workers, including Babbitt. Although the strike formally ends with the agreement, the damage to the studio's morale and operations is profound. Walt Disney, feeling betrayed and disillusioned, remains bitter about the strike's impact, viewing it as a catastrophic event driven by communist influences. The settlement leaves him contemplating the future of his studio amidst a significant financial and emotional toll, leading him to step away temporarily as the studio faces layoffs and restructuring. Walt Disney, seeking to escape the turmoil of his studio's strike, embarks on a goodwill and filmmaking trip to South America. Sponsored by the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs, Walt and his team travel through various countries, soaking up local culture and meeting adoring fans. Despite the trip's diplomatic and creative intentions, the group finds it challenging to focus on work amidst constant social engagements. Walt, growing tired of the festivities, eventually moves on to Chile for a much-needed rest. During this period, the Disney studio grapples with severe internal conflicts. The strike, primarily over layoffs, leads to significant animosity and a hostile work environment. Despite attempts to negotiate, the federal conciliator's absence prolongs the dispute, resulting in a prolonged studio closure and a harsh settlement that leaves many employees disgruntled. Walt returns to find a drastically changed studio, with the Bank of America imposing strict financial controls and curtailing feature film production, fundamentally altering the studio's operation. Amidst this upheaval, Walt's personal life also faces a blow with the death of his father, Elias Disney. While Walt remains in South America, Roy handles their father's final days and funeral. The strike's aftermath further strains Walt's relationships with his employees, leaving the studio's once vibrant and collaborative atmosphere marred by fear and resentment. This period marks a significant turning point as Walt's dream of a perfect creative haven is shattered by the realities of business and labor strife. Walt Disney's studio faces a challenging period as the United States enters World War II. During this time, the animators finish Dumbo, which garners positive reviews despite its lower production costs and simpler animation style. The film marks a return to Disney's roots, emphasizing maturity and responsibility. However, the studio's focus soon shifts as the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor prompts the U.S. to enter the war. Walt quickly adapts, receiving a call from a Navy official to produce 20 films on aircraft and warship identification, leading to the studio's transformation into an arm of the government. Walt had already begun seeking government contracts before the attack, anticipating financial difficulties due to a recent strike and the studio's economic struggles. By leveraging his connections, Walt secures various government projects, including instructional films and propaganda shorts. The creation of The New Spirit, a film encouraging Americans to pay taxes, illustrates this shift. Produced under tight deadlines, the film becomes a success, seen by millions, although it financially strains the studio. This period marks a significant change as Disney Studios becomes heavily involved in government work, moving away from its purely entertainment-focused roots. Despite the studio's pivot to wartime efforts, Walt remains creatively driven. He embarks on producing Victory Through Air Power, inspired by Major Alexander P. de Seversky's book advocating for long-range bombing as a war strategy. This project rekindles Walt's passion, blending live action and animation to communicate complex military strategies. Although challenging and controversial, the film reflects Walt's commitment to contributing to the war effort while maintaining a degree of artistic ambition. Concurrently, Walt continues to produce other educational and propaganda films, ensuring the studio's survival during these tumultuous times. Despite the studio's focus on wartime production, Bambi continued to progress, albeit with significant cost-cutting measures. Walt Disney, under financial strain, made drastic cuts to scenes and simplified animations to reduce expenses. When the film previewed, reactions were mixed, and negative publicity, including critiques from conservationists, further hindered its reception. Ultimately, Bambi faced poor box office returns, failing to break even, and critics lamented Disney's departure from fantasy towards realism. The war brought significant changes to the studio environment, with increased militarization and a shift in priorities towards efficiency and economy. The studio produced government films at a lower cost, with many employees joining the armed forces. This new focus on expedient production methods marked a philosophical shift away from the studio's previous emphasis on quality. Despite the challenges, government contracts provided crucial financial stability, preventing the studio from going bankrupt. By 1942, Disney had become a leader in government film production, with a substantial increase in output dedicated to educational and training films for the war effort. Although this work garnered recognition for its educational value, it was a far cry from Disney's original creative aspirations. The war had forced a transformation in the studio's operations and goals, reflecting the broader impact of global conflict on creative enterprises. Walt Disney, busy in 1942, ends the year with a research trip to Mexico for a sequel to Saludos Amigos. He begins the new year attending the premiere of the film, which is met with mixed reviews. Critics are unimpressed, but it gains significant popularity in South America, especially among local audiences who appreciate its cultural representation. Despite this, Disney is more enthusiastic about his next project, Victory Through Air Power, which he believes can influence the war's outcome by emphasizing the importance of air power. This project faces challenges in balancing entertainment and education, but receives high praise from military officials and notable figures like Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt, although it struggles to find a broad audience. Throughout the war years, Disney's work producing government films makes up 94% of its output by the end of 1943. This work, essential for the war effort, distances Disney from his passion for creative filmmaking. Despite these contributions, including designs for military insignia and effective health and literacy films for South America, Disney feels disconnected from his original mission. The studio's financial stability improves through re-releasing classics like Snow White, which performs well and helps reduce debt, but the creative spirit that once defined the studio is overshadowed by its transformation into a wartime production house. As the war concludes, Disney looks forward to returning to innovative entertainment projects. Despite the success of government work and the popularity of The Three Caballeros in South America, he remains eager to reestablish the studio's creative vision. The re-release of Snow White and other features marks a return to form, providing both financial relief and a reminder of the studio's potential for creating beloved films. Disney hopes to move away from training and propaganda films, yearning to recapture the magic and influence of his earlier works in the post-war era. Chapter 9: Adrift. Walt Disney, after nearly 4 years, reclaims control of his studio from wartime management and soldiers. He plans to revive feature film production, with numerous projects lined up, including The Wind in the Willows, Alice in Wonderland, and collaborations with Salvador Dali. Disney is enthusiastic about these new ventures, especially as he aims to explore more artistic and psychological dimensions in his animations. He partners with Dali to create Destino, blending surrealism with Disney's animation style, symbolizing Disney's desire to innovate and redefine his creative output post-war. Challenges arise as Walt's brother, Roy, and new management staff impose strict financial controls, which clash with Walt's creative ambitions. Roy insists on fiscal discipline to prevent the studio from overextending itself, leading to significant internal conflicts. Despite these efforts to restructure, Walt's disdain for bureaucratic constraints and his insistence on creative control result in a tangled hierarchy and strained management relations. This period is marked by a decrease in animation quality and a sense of creative stasis within the studio, reflecting the struggles of returning to pre-war success. Walt's artistic reputation suffers as his new films, including the compilation features Make Mine Music and Fun and Fancy Free, fail to meet the critical acclaim of earlier works. These films, seen as lacking the emotional depth of his pre-war features, indicate a shift in Disney's approach, driven by financial necessity rather than artistic innovation. Walt's increasing reliance on audience feedback and focus groups further distances his work from its former artistic integrity, signaling a transition period for the Disney studio. In the 1940s, Walt Disney is no longer the uncontested leader in animation. Although he once set the standard with Mickey Mouse and Snow White, rival studios like Warner Brothers and MGM are challenging his dominance. These competitors often imitate Disney but fail to match his quality and innovation. Disney's success is partly due to his significant investments and exclusive use of Technicolor, which other studios can't afford. However, Disney's true edge lies in his unmatched talent and commitment to animation as an art form, while other studios treat it merely as a product. As World War II progresses, Disney's output stagnates due to government contracts, giving his rivals a chance to innovate. Warner Brothers, led by Leon Schlesinger and housing animators like Tex Avery, Bob Clampett, and Chuck Jones, embraces a more chaotic, irreverent style. Their cartoons, characterized by wild energy and adult humor, starkly contrast Disney's polished and controlled animations. This new style resonates with audiences and critics alike, winning Warner Brothers multiple Academy Awards and making their cartoons, such as those featuring Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, hugely popular. Meanwhile, MGM's Fred Quimby allows directors like Joseph Barbera and William Hanna the freedom to experiment, leading to the creation of Tom and Jerry, a series that also garners critical acclaim. These studios' willingness to push boundaries makes Disney's work seem dated. While Disney tries to adapt by incorporating some of Warner Brothers' humor and energy, his studio struggles to break away from its meticulously crafted style. Consequently, the vibrant and rebellious spirit of Warner Brothers and MGM Animations captures the public's imagination, overshadowing Disney's formerly unrivaled creations. Walt Disney faces frustration with the high costs and personnel issues in animation. Seeking a less costly alternative, he considers combining live action with animation, inspired by the Uncle Remus stories by Joel Chandler Harris. Despite initial enthusiasm and a detailed screenplay, the project, later titled Song of the South, faces significant backlash from the Black community for perpetuating racial stereotypes. Disney tries to address concerns by consulting with Black Americans and making script adjustments, but the controversy persists. The film, completed in 1946, receives mixed reactions. Critics lament the heavy use of live action over animation, and it grosses less than expected, although it does moderately well. The racial controversy intensifies upon release, with protests and criticisms from civil rights organizations. Despite this, Disney remains supportive of James Baskett, who plays Uncle Remus and later receives an honorary Oscar for his performance. After the war, Disney feels restless and disconnected from animation, embarking on various projects, including educational films and nature documentaries. The first of these documentaries, Seal Island, showcases his ability to blend entertainment with education. Despite initial distribution challenges, the film wins an Academy Award and sets the stage for Disney's future in nature documentaries, offering a small victory amidst ongoing struggles to redefine his studio's direction and regain his creative spark. Walt Disney, struggling with his studio's declining fortunes and suspecting communist infiltration as the cause, decided to fight back by joining the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals. Despite his family's socialist leanings, Walt had remained largely apolitical for most of his life. However, post-World War II, he became entangled in the anti-communist fervor sweeping Hollywood. He actively participated in MPA activities and testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1947, denouncing alleged communists in his studio, despite a lack of concrete evidence. Walt's political conservatism grew more pronounced as he associated with reactionary figures and groups, donating to the Republican Party and supporting anti-communist initiatives. His involvement with the MPA, known for its harsh anti-communist stance and rumored anti-Semitism, led to accusations against him of holding similar prejudices. Although Walt contributed to Jewish charities and had Jewish friends and colleagues, his alignment with the MPA and its controversial members stained his reputation. The accusations of anti-Semitism, compounded by his anti-communist activities, persisted throughout his life and beyond. Despite efforts to clear his name, Walt Disney's legacy remained overshadowed by the political alliances and actions he chose during a tumultuous period in American history. In late 1947, Walt Disney's studio faces turmoil despite another reorganization. Ben Sharpstein leads feature animation while Hal Adelquist manages the story department, yet constant reshuffling undermines stability. Walt remains disengaged, focusing on finalizing The Wind in the Willows and Ichabod Crane, working on a live-action film, and preparing Melody Time, which disappoints financially. Amid layoffs and financial strain, Walt contemplates making a feature film, wavering between Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, ultimately deciding to proceed with both, seeking to revive the studio's fortunes. The production of Cinderella brings a sense of purpose back to the studio. Despite a lack of Walt's usual hands-on involvement, the animators strive to create a film that can match the success of Snow White. Budget constraints lead to cost-cutting measures that limit creative experimentation. Animation style shifts to a simpler, more economical approach, with scenes pre-shot in live action to guide animators. This practical but uninspired method reflects Walt's reluctance to take risks, focusing instead on ensuring financial viability. During this period, Walt finds solace in his family and a burgeoning interest in trains. He becomes absorbed in building a miniature steam locomotive, spending hours in the studio machine shop. This new passion offers him a distraction from the studio's challenges and a way to regain a sense of control and creativity. As he completes his model train, he finds joy and contentment reminiscent of his early days of animation. Yet, this shift in focus leaves some, like New York Times critic Bosley Crowther, feeling sad to see the visionary creator seemingly retreating into his hobbies. Walt Disney is distracted by his interest in trains while his studio completes So Dear to My Heart, a live-action animation combination film. Despite his involvement in the early stages of the film's production, Walt becomes dissatisfied with the outcome, leading to reworking and adding animated sequences. This film, although more sincere than Song of the South, is criticized as overly nostalgic and kitschy. Walt, seeking a hit, promotes the film extensively. Walt's ambition to make live-action films is driven by both personal interest and economic necessity due to restrictive foreign film policies. He starts with Treasure Island, a British live-action feature financed with impounded foreign funds. Walt and his family enjoy a European vacation under the pretense of supervising the film. Despite some logistical challenges, including issues with young actor Bobby Driscoll's work permit, the production goes smoothly, and Treasure Island becomes a critical and financial success. Simultaneously, the Disney studio faces a significant loss with the death of Kay Kamen, the head of their profitable merchandise division, in a plane crash. The Disney brothers decide to manage the merchandising themselves, appointing O.B. Johnston to lead the division. This shift, coupled with their move into live-action films, contributes to the evolving perception of Walt Disney as a corporate figure rather than solely an artist. Walt Disney's dedication to his studio is unwavering, often staying late and even sleeping there. Despite his immense focus on the studio, he begins planning a new house for his family, intending it as a 25th wedding anniversary gift. Walt's obsession with trains drives the location choice, leading to a purchase in Holmby Hills where he can build his dream railroad. This new home, a modern split-level designed by architect James Delena, features a swimming pool, a recreation building with a screening room, and most importantly, ample space for Walt's beloved railroad. As Walt immerses himself in building and designing his new home and railroad, his involvement in the studio diminishes. He supervises the production of Cinderella from a distance, which some staff find disconcerting. Nevertheless, Cinderella emerges as a critical and financial success, grossing $7.9 million and rescuing the studio from potential financial ruin. Despite the film's success and the accolades it receives, Walt remains somewhat detached, seeing the compromises and issues within the studio's operations. Walt's true passion now lies in his new home, especially in his elaborate railroad setup. He spends evenings tinkering in his workshop or serving ice cream sodas to guests from his custom soda fountain. His house becomes a sanctuary, allowing him to retreat from the pressures of the world and indulge in his childhood fantasies. However, this retreat signifies a deeper search for a perfect world, as Walt continues to seek solace and joy beyond the realm of animation. Chapter 10, City on a Hill. Walt Disney focuses on control, providing America with reassurance during uncertain times, especially post-World War II. The country, despite its economic boom, faces anxiety from the Cold War and rapid societal changes. Disney's animations offer a sense of stability and nostalgia, resonating with the public's need for comfort. Amidst this, Disney finds personal solace in his model trains and miniatures, leading to the creation of a miniature American village, which he plans to display publicly. Disney's ambition evolves as he decides to build an amusement park. Inspired by visits to various parks and driven by a desire to create a clean, family-friendly environment, he visualizes a park that includes various themed areas and attractions. He begins developing detailed plans and engaging with designers to bring his vision to life. Despite skepticism from those around him, including family and business associates, Disney remains determined, continuously refining his concept and expanding plans. As studio demands persist, Disney balances his projects, including the completion of films like Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. Despite mixed successes, he remains focused on his larger goal. His passion for the amusement park, which eventually is known as Disneyland, grows stronger, symbolizing his ultimate quest for control and creativity. The park represents his innovative spirit and his desire to offer a place of joy and imagination for families. Walt envisions the park as a way to recreate the creative community he once cherished. To facilitate this, he forms WED Enterprises in December 1952, a separate entity from the studio, allowing him to plan Disneyland with a small, dedicated team. Walt and his team begin gathering ideas and expertise, recruiting from within the studio and consulting with architects like William Pereira. WED quickly becomes a hub of creativity and planning, reminiscent of the early days at Hyperion Studio. Walt involves his team in extensive research and planning, drawing on influences from European gardens, expositions, and historical recreations. He envisions Disneyland not just as an amusement park, but as a cohesive, imaginative world. The park is designed to provide a harmonious and controlled environment, contrasting with the chaos of typical amusement parks. This new venture brings Walt immense joy and a sense of purpose as he revisits the excitement of working on something groundbreaking. As planning progresses, Walt realizes the need for a larger site, leading to the decision to move away from Burbank. With the help of Harrison Buzz Price from the Stanford Research Institute, Walt identifies a 160-acre orange grove in Anaheim as the ideal location. The land is affordable and well-situated for transportation, marking a significant step towards making Disneyland a reality. Now, all Walt needs is the funding to bring his vision to life. Borrowing against personal assets and coaxing investments from friends, Walt Disney faces significant financial challenges. Initially hesitant, his brother Roy eventually supports Walt's vision after a banker's endorsement and potential seed money. Despite these struggles, Walt remains determined, banking on television as a solution. Fascinated by the medium since the mid-1930s, Walt's foresight leads to negotiating a deal with ABC. This partnership provides crucial funding for Disneyland, with ABC investing in the park in exchange for a television series, allowing Walt to realize his dream. Walt's engagement with television transforms the entertainment landscape. His show, Disneyland, debuts in 1954, blending old Disney content with new material, captivating audiences and critics alike. The show's success catapults ABC into prominence, exemplified by the phenomenon of Davy Crockett, which captures the nation's imagination and drives merchandise sales. Walt leverages this success to promote American values and technological optimism, fostering a unique blend of nostalgia and futurism that resonates deeply with 1950s America. The success of Disneyland on television, followed by the launch of The Mickey Mouse Club, further solidifies Walt Disney's impact on popular culture. Despite mixed critical reception, The Mickey Mouse Club becomes a hit with children, cementing Walt's role as a beloved figure in American households. These television ventures, while not immediately profitable, are strategic moves to generate interest and investment in Disneyland, demonstrating a visionary approach to integrating media and theme park experiences. Walt Disney is consumed with creating Disneyland, thinking about it constantly while working on other projects. By September 1953, after securing the Anaheim property, he pushes his team to redesign the park repeatedly. Walt gathers ideas and insights from various amusement parks and hires advisors, ensuring Disneyland will be unique. Despite challenges like strikes, construction issues, and budget constraints, Walt remains hands-on, ensuring every detail aligns with his vision. He personally involves himself in the construction, landscape design, and acquisition of attractions, driven by his desire for innovative perfection. As the July 1955 opening approaches, Walt's excitement grows. He meticulously oversees final preparations, tweaking and perfecting every aspect of the park. Opening day is chaotic, with counterfeit tickets, technical glitches during the live broadcast, and various complaints from guests. Despite these issues, the park's debut is a historic event, attracting national attention. Walt's enthusiasm is infectious, and his hands-on approach ensures that the park reflects his vision, creating an immersive, magical experience for guests. Post-opening, Disneyland is hailed as a cultural milestone. It's seen not just as an amusement park, but as a realization of Walt's animated fantasies brought to life. The park's design, inspired by cinematic techniques, offers a seamless blend of nostalgia and innovation. Guests are transported to different worlds, each meticulously crafted to provide a sense of joy and wonder. Walt's relentless pursuit of detail and his ability to create an ordered, harmonious environment make Disneyland a place where visitors feel a profound sense of well-being and empowerment. Walt Disney, deeply invested in Disneyland, spends most of his time at the park, continuously improving it. Unlike his films, which he disengages from once completed, the park is a living project he can always enhance. He knows every detail of the park, from pipes to nails, and enjoys the work of refining it, often using it as a retreat from the pressures of his studio work. Disneyland rapidly becomes a success, drawing millions of visitors and generating significant revenue for Walt Disney Productions. The park introduces various attractions, such as the Alpine Skyway and the House of Tomorrow, and implements a popular ticketing system. Despite the financial success, Walt's involvement at the park grows, while his interest in the studio wanes, leading to a shift in focus. At the studio, Walt's growing absence and increasing authoritarian management style create a climate of fear. Frequent firings and harsh critiques make the work environment tense. Employees are cautious, knowing that disagreement with Walt can result in termination. Despite these challenges, Walt's dedication to Disneyland remains unwavering, reflecting his passion for the park over his other ventures. Walt Disney, known as a lovable genius, and his wife Lillian publicly appeared to have a happy marriage. However, their relationship was filled with persistent tensions. Lillian felt neglected due to Walt's dedication to his work and public image, often being left alone during his engagements. Though she adored him, Lillian struggled with his unpredictable nature and the priority he gave to his projects over family, leading to frequent arguments and a sense of insecurity in their marriage. Walt and Lillian's contrasting interests further strained their relationship. Lillian did not share Walt's enthusiasm for his creative projects, such as Disneyland, and often felt excluded from his world. Despite their differences, Walt was physically affectionate and tried to pacify Lillian by indulging her wishes, although not always thoughtfully. Their domestic life was punctuated by quarrels, with Lillian often expressing her dissatisfaction openly, while Walt remained focused on his ambitions. As their daughters grew up and started their own families, Walt and Lillian found themselves alone. Walt continued to immerse himself in work and hobbies, often retreating to his studio or Disneyland apartment to escape marital tensions. They traveled frequently, which served as a way for Walt to distance himself from the pressures of his studio life. Despite these efforts, the inherent differences in their personalities and priorities meant that their marriage was marked by ongoing friction and a struggle to balance personal and professional commitments. In the 1950s, Walt Disney's passion for animation wanes as television overtakes cinema, leading to reduced budgets and the eventual dismissal of the shorts units by 1957. Despite producing more animation due to Disneyland and the Mickey Mouse Club, the quality deteriorates. Disney's new rival, UPA, introduces a minimalist and modernist style, exemplified by Gerald McBoing Boing, which contrasts sharply with Disney's detailed and realistic approach. Walt shifts focus to live action and theme parks, showing less interest in animated features like Lady and the Tramp and Sleeping Beauty. Ivan Earle's modernist designs for Sleeping Beauty receive mixed reactions, leading to production delays and a budget that balloons to $6 million. Upon its 1959 release, the film fails critically and financially, marking a low point for Disney animation. Simultaneously, UPA, initially thriving with its distinctive style and adult themes, begins to crumble due to internal strife and external pressures. Their influence persists, however, as television adopts UPA's cost-effective, simplified animation techniques. Meanwhile, Disney's creative energies and dreams shift from animated films to expanding Disneyland. Chapter 11, Slouching Toward Utopia. Disney achieves great success following the opening of Disneyland, significantly boosting financial performance. By 1958, Disney's diverse ventures in film, television, theme parks, and merchandise create a synergistic business model. Roy Disney suggests merging Walt Disney Productions with Disneyland to offset profits and losses, leading to further financial stability. Walt's creative ambitions remain high, resulting in new Disneyland attractions like the Matterhorn, monorail, and submarine voyage, despite financial caution from Roy. Disneyland becomes a must-see for international dignitaries, enhancing Walt's stature. In television, Walt renews agreements with ABC for Disneyland and the Mickey Mouse Club, but grows frustrated with the network's constraints. He eventually negotiates a groundbreaking deal with NBC, leading to the creation of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. This partnership propels the transition to color television and revitalizes Walt's creative energy. The show's success and impact on color TV sales underscore Disney's influence on the medium. Despite immense success, Walt remains a humble, driven individual. He's deeply involved in Disneyland's ongoing development and maintains a hands-on approach to his work. His passion for new projects keeps him active and innovative, ensuring that both his legacy and Disney's brand continue to thrive. Walt evolves into a visionary planner after the success of Disneyland, seeing himself capable of transforming environments beyond entertainment. His ambitions extend to various projects, including a model farm in his hometown and a sports center in Denver. Despite some failed ventures, like the Smoke Tree Project, he maintains his drive to create grand attractions. His enthusiasm leads to innovative ideas like a bowling recreation complex and even the concept of a city of the arts, combining residential areas with cultural institutions. In the early 60s, Walt becomes involved in the 1964 New York World's Fair, where he collaborates with Robert Moses. Initially declining to design a children's village, Walt instead takes on corporate-sponsored pavilions, notably with Ford and GE. He develops groundbreaking attractions, such as a ride featuring Ford convertibles and the ambitious Carousel of Progress for GE, which showcases the advancements in electricity through rotating tableau of audio animatronic figures. These projects allow Walt to experiment with new technologies and concepts, reinforcing his reputation as an innovative force. One of Walt's most ambitious projects for the fair is creating a life-size audio animatronic figure of Abraham Lincoln for the Illinois Pavilion, despite initial funding challenges. His dedication and ingenuity also lead to the development of It's a Small World for the Pepsi-Cola Company, emphasizing global unity through a boat ride with animated dolls. As Walt approaches 60, he starts thinking about his legacy and the future of his studio. He expresses his concerns to colleagues like Bill Peet and Ken Anakin, showing moments of hope and despair about the company's survival without him. Walt has been delegating responsibilities and reorganizing his staff to ensure continuity, but he still fears that his executives might not handle things after his departure. Meanwhile, the studio undergoes significant physical expansions, including new sound stages and the acquisition of the Golden Oak Ranch for filming and livestock. Studio personnel and film productions evolve as well. The old guard, including key figures like Wilfred Jackson and Ben Sharpstein, retire, replaced by new leaders such as Bill Anderson and Card Walker. Walt relinquishes his official titles, but remains the ultimate authority, deeply involved in script development and production decisions. The focus shifts from animation to live-action films, with successful family-oriented comedies and dramas like The Absent-Minded Professor and Pollyanna. Despite criticisms of the newer films being simplistic and lacking artistic depth, they achieve considerable commercial success. Walt's concerns extend to the financial security of his family and the company's stability. He and his brother Roy have long-standing tensions over financial matters, culminating in a contentious negotiation over Walt's new contract. Eventually, they reach an agreement, and their relationship begins to mend. Walt also envisions a lasting legacy through the California Institute of the Arts, a comprehensive educational institution for the arts, which he passionately promotes as his most important contribution to society. This vision reflects Walt's enduring commitment to creativity and community, aiming to leave a positive impact beyond entertainment. In 1964, Imagineers at WED prepare for the New York World's Fair. The Ford attraction is completed smoothly, while the GE Carousel of Progress requires more effort, needing a comical audio animatronic dog added for its final touch. Despite time constraints, It's a Small World also opens to a positive reception. However, the Abraham Lincoln exhibit proves most problematic, with issues in programming and voice selection. Walt eventually chooses Royal Dano for Lincoln's voice, and despite last-minute technical glitches, the exhibit is a success. Simultaneously, Walt Disney's cinematic triumph, Mary Poppins, unfolds. After years of negotiation, Walt secures the rights from P.L. Travers and casts Julie Andrews in the lead role. Despite Travers' ongoing dissatisfaction and interference, the film's production proceeds with joyful enthusiasm at the studio. Mary Poppins becomes a critical and commercial success, earning significant box office returns and several Academy Awards. As the World's Fair continues into its second season, Disney's exhibits attract millions of visitors, solidifying Walt's success. Despite criticisms from intellectuals, Walt's creations are well received by the public. The exhibits are later integrated into Disneyland, and Walt leverages this success to explore new opportunities. Major General William E. Joe Potter is recruited to lead Project Future, hinting at the ambitious plans Walt has for Disneyland and beyond, marking the beginning of a new, larger phase in Disney's expansion. Almost immediately after Disneyland opened, Disney faced inquiries about building another park. Despite public denial of such plans, Walt secretly collaborated with NBC in 1958 to explore a potential park in New Jersey, but a feasibility study deemed it unprofitable. Other locations were considered, including St. Louis, where serious negotiations took place. However, disagreements over finances and local conditions led Walt to lose interest, especially as he found a more appealing option in Florida. By 1963, he was actively scouting land in Florida, ultimately leading to the covert acquisition of 27,400 acres near Orlando by 1965. Walt envisioned not just a theme park, but a revolutionary city concept called Epcot. Epcot was planned to feature advanced technology, efficient transportation, and a high quality of life. Walt's meticulous planning involved secrecy, utilizing front companies to buy land to avoid price inflation. His vision included collaborations with major corporations to test and showcase new technologies within Epcot, emphasizing innovation and forward-thinking urban design. Publicly, Walt remained tight-lipped about the Florida project until November 1965, when he announced plans for Disney World, projecting an opening by 1969. Although the theme park was a significant aspect, Walt's true passion lay in creating Epcot. He saw it as a way to address contemporary social issues and experiment with new urban living concepts. Walt's plans included extensive and futuristic infrastructure, aiming for a harmonious and efficient community. His dream for Epcot, though ambitious, was rooted in a desire to innovate and improve societal living conditions through urban planning. In the 1960s, Walt Disney emerges as a defender of American culture amid escalating civil rights protests and intensifying military involvement in Southeast Asia. Despite barely acknowledging the country's problems publicly, Disney's image represents the decency and generosity of America. Politically, Disney supports various Republican campaigns, including Eisenhower's and Goldwater's, and actively involves himself in George Murphy's Senate campaign, though he later downplays his political engagement, claiming politics are not interesting. Disney's persona and creations, especially Disneyland, face criticism for glossing over reality and fostering a synthetic world. Intellectuals argue that Disneyland provides a fortress against contemporary issues and transforms reality into a hyperreal simulation, embedding Disney's vision into the American consciousness. This critique extends to Disney himself, seen as an emblem of cultural and political conservatism, resistant to change amidst a rapidly shifting American society. His public image contrasts sharply with the modern, occasionally rebellious themes in his films, suggesting a complex, multifaceted legacy. In his later years, Disney leads a relatively lonely life, finding solace in travel and his grandchildren. He indulges in simple pastimes like lawn bowling and baseball, but struggles with social connections and prefers solitude. Despite this, his impact on American culture remains profound, with his personal and professional endeavors reflecting both the enduring values and the evolving contradictions of mid-20th century America. Walt Disney, sensing his time might be limited, becomes increasingly reflective and melancholic. He often invites the Sherman brothers to his office to play Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins, a song that moves him deeply. Despite health concerns, Walt remains deeply involved in projects, including supervising film productions, working on the Mineral King Ski Resort, and planning Epcot. He also actively supports Cal Arts, donating land and funds to help establish a new campus. Amidst this flurry of activity, Walt's health deteriorates. He battles numerous ailments, including severe pain from a long-standing polo injury, yet he refuses to slow down. Eventually, doctors discover a cancerous tumor in his lung, which drastically worsens his condition. Despite this, Walt continues working, attending meetings, and outlining future plans for projects. His optimism and determination to push forward mask the severity of his illness to those around him. As his condition worsens, Walt still tries to maintain a semblance of normalcy, spending time with his family and handling business affairs from the hospital. He passes away on December 15, 1966, leaving a legacy of innovation and creativity. His death marks the end of an era for the Disney Company, but his vision and contributions to entertainment and culture endure, shaping the world in ways that continue to be felt. This concludes our story. It was based on Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination by Neal Gabler. If you would like to read the book this story was based on, there is a link in the description. If you like this narrative, please like and subscribe for more stories. If you want to support the channel further, consider buying our app Count Currency on iPhone, published by Finespun Software. This narrative was produced with help from tools made by OpenAI. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.